Hello, my name is Jeike Meijer, and my senior honors thesis is on Native American civil engagement in Santa Barbara County. Now, I define civil engagement not only as voting and participating in the voting system, but also sense of personal stake and the willingness to go beyond voting, for example, engaging in political campaigns for either a issue or for a candidate. What I found overwhelmingly was that Native American people in Santa Barbara County did not feel that the government represented their interests. This is both on the local level and on the national level. As you can see, every single respondent responded no. I was able to do 8 interviews in total, and they were quite extensive, and we went into a lot of different background topics that influenced their voting experience. But what I found was that most respondents felt that they experienced barriers at some point in their life for voting, and mostly this was educational. This was not understanding how to access the political sector, how to get registered to vote, where to get registered to vote, not knowing what kind of impact their vote would have, not knowing how to vote, not having information on the candidates, for example, as well as senses of not feeling important in this involvement process. There were, however, respondents who did feel that their vote matters because Native voices are so often absent and because they want to represent that Native American voice in government, and that seems to be their only way at the moment to be involved. I, as you can see, included federal recognition as a note for this, because so many of our communities are different and experience different things and experiences, and federal recognition can play a part in that, in people's experiences. And what I found overwhelmingly was just this demand and call to action that people really all had. First of all, multiple respondents decided that they wanted there to be an acknowledgement of local Chumash people. And what this looks like from our local leaders is not only, acknowledging and saying, yes, I know that they're there, I know that this land is Chumash, but making that effort to build a relationship with the people whose land they're on, and making sure that they are connecting and understanding that this history of genocide and colonialism in our United States is continuing, and has ramifications for today. What we also need is better education, both on the political system and voting process for probably all people, but it was clear that Native respondents also have been disenfranchised from this process, but also on historically how this country has set Native people at a disadvantage, and how those historical precedents impact today. It's important to also note that across the United States that there are Native people facing voter discrimination. I didn't experience anyone in Santa Barbara County being turned away for their ID card, but that's because in California you don't need an ID to vote. However, in other states you do need an ID to vote, and tribal cards are sometimes not accepted, things like that. And distance from polls is often a problem, which was also not a big problem in Santa Barbara County. But again, there was still issues of education and lack of transparency from the political system. Another really big thing that almost every respondent stressed was that there needs to be better representation in Santa Barbara County, not only in our leaders. So our respondents would like to see a Native American leader, but also in platforms. We don't see candidates campaigning for Native people, and often when they do, it is forgotten once they're in office. And so these platforms need to be genuine, they need to come from their heart, and there needs to be a follow through. It can't be getting into office and then forgetting about all the promises that were made. And a long-term goal would be dismantling the structures of inequality which make these systems inaccessible to begin with. So for example, one respondent mentioned to have a Constitution Convention, which has been an idea that's been thrown around by various activists in the United States just to readdress amendments that might be outdated. And this might be a big goal, but it is interesting to think about and to address that we can't necessarily move forward in a system that has been built upon genocide and slavery. Another important thing to note that I was not aware of before entering this project is the high rates of Native people in the foster care system. We have a history in this country of Native people being removed from their homes and put into foster care systems. And they're with the Indian Adoption Project, which forced Native children out of their families at extremely disproportionate rates and used racist reasonings as to why that was okay, saying that Native people aren't capable of taking care of their children, which is built on a lie. And so what we've seen is that this has had a legacy today, and there are still really high amounts of Native people in the foster care system. And one of my respondents grew up in the foster care system and said that they had absolutely no education about voting whatsoever, no idea what to do, and didn't get education in schooling, and that most of their siblings in the foster care system also had the same experience. So that's an example of a structural inequality that we need to address, because clearly it's affecting every part of their lives, including voting and including their participation with the political system. So what needs to be addressed first and foremost is how the structure is already set up in a larger scale scope across the United States, and how inequality affects Native people and is built into law. And then we need to have our leaders do better to fixing that. Not only fixing that inequality, but fixing the access to education, fixing the access to physical polls, and representing Native issues both in their platforms and their advocacy, and making sure that it's genuine and there's a follow through.